Welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track with our sponsors as always, FitPhone and Independent Gyms. We've got a fantastic guest this morning, Jon Nasta. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Ryan, and thank you for inviting me on.
Oh, absolutely, our pleasure. And as always, Glenda, how are you?
Very good. Really looking forward to this one.
So am I, the retention guru, the retention expert with us this morning. So really looking forward to this one. So just to get us started, Jon, because I mean, let's be honest, nearly everyone in our industry must know who you are. If they don't, they've been living under a rock for a very long time. But do you want to give us a quick run through who Jon Nasta is, your sort of brief career and what's brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, that's really kind. Great intro. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd say I'm more of a retention badger than the retention guru. Our good friend Paul Bedford might be taking umbrage if we start calling me the retention guru. So I'll stick to retention badger. Thank you. I really managed to find my way in the industry by having, like we're saying, this obsession with customer experience and retention. Like most people, I'm a failed sportsman. I used to play national ranking tennis, and if you've ever met me in person, you can tell because of my massive height and stature, I also played basketball for Birmingham. So that led me into the fitness industry with a sales background as well. I ended up selling fitness kit, heavily involved with Matrix in the early days.
Okay.
And I came across a product called Retention Management at a trade show in America. And they basically automated a lot of things people wanted to do in their clubs, but didn't always have the time to do. Simply put, sending attendance-based messages to your members. So it looked like somebody in the gym had said, well done, Ryan, the efforts you made this week are going to pay you back in the future. Or, hey, Jon, we've missed you. Or, Glenda, well done, we'd love to see you a bit more. That's putting it in a really simple level. And, over the last 15 years, I've used those practices and that software and the automation of retention or communication messages to help over 2,000 clubs.
Wow.
Probably save about 2 million memberships, which is probably worth about $1.2 billion to
I like that.
That's
in the
incredible,
industry.
isn't it?
That's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's nice to think, and like so many people, you do get a buzz out of helping people stick with their exercise journeys, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to throw right in at the deep end here, Jon, because we love a bit of controversy on our podcast. What would you say is the average retention rate of a club at the minute in the UK? Because you never get the true answer, do we? What do you think is the real answer?
Well, it depends. There's different answers for different markets. Okay,
Yeah.
So if we want some headline figures, let's just say roughly. I mean, this is why the pandemic pulled so many people's pants down, didn't it? You've got 60% of members generally known as sleepers.
Mm-hmm.
Average visits per member, just over one a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, just let that sink in.
Yeah, that's a big number, that is. And I think that I always knew that, if I'm being honest, because even in good clubs, when I used to do the numbers, you'd be looking at maybe 1.7 visits in a good club. And I'm like, I know you can't get 0.7 of a visit, but I'm like, well, that's saying it's an average of one workout a week, right?
Yeah.
And we wonder, why we struggle. But I guess what I always talk to Ryan about and we get frustrated about, even if you went once a week and a club was, say, 60 a month, and that's only £15 a session, it's quite ridiculous that our sector's not managing for that to be seen as value when you can go once for a meal and pay, 30 or 40 quid. So it's quite interesting, that, I think.
Yes, it is fascinating, and it all comes down to what is value, isn't it? What's value? And then, value it's something that is co-created, if you like, by the operator and the member. And the members that do well on retention, they allow the clubs that do well with retention, they allow the members to be involved in their journey, and they feel like they're creating something themselves. They're creating more moments through the membership life cycle, and they're creating a memorable experience. And obviously, if you've created something with the help of the club, you put more value onto it. But as you've rightly pointed out, it's a gift to be able to do that. You see some really great operators And, you know, the ones I work with more tend to be really good operators. They're the ones who are interested in improving a little bit. Bad operators, you can't make a bad club good.
And what sort of things, just talking about that then, John, obviously you're going into these clubs that have really want to work with their members and they want to involve them in what they're doing. What sort of things are you seeing that's really adding value and improving what they're doing? What sort of things do you look at when you go into a club and go, okay, we need to have a look at this, we need to bring the members on board?
Yeah, again, I mean, we could go on all day about this, but to try and cut it into two relevant things here, you've got the C word, which is obviously community. Yeah. Clubs that are creating community are obviously doing better than clubs that aren't, and you get their belonging. I was listening to another podcast, our colleagues at Fitness Business podcast last week. There was an insurance guy on, and he said, you know, the biggest indemnifier against loss or risk is knowing your members' names.
Wow.
You know, his point was friends don't sue friends, but also there's so many other connotations to knowing your members' names, isn't there?
But it's not actually that hard to do. I know when we were at Marriott, it was a really big thing in terms of a lot of clubs used to have the membership card scanner on the desk facing the members, and they could scan themselves in. We turned ours round, so they had to give us their card. So by giving the card, we scan it in. Welcome to the club, John. Have a great workout. And suddenly, we got to know their names, but also we had that instant contact every single visit. I can't remember who introduced it. The old Fab Five. So it was the hello, smile, eye contact, hello, goodbye, every member every time. And it was such a powerful thing that you had that contact, but also you knew their name and you used their name. And it just, I mean, our retention was about, I think the best we got was 12% in 1 year. And we always put it down to the fact that we knew our members.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
less likely to leave if they felt part of that community.
Absolutely. That's right. If you feel you belong somewhere, you're less likely to leave it. Like I've just recently, I've left my zone wristband down the gym. So I've had 2 days without it. Yeah. And I'm worrying about what's going on in the community, the various challenges I'm in, the various communities I'm in. Because
don't worry, someone else is using it for you, John. So,
but then to go back to answering your question, yeah, clubs that do well, they think about community, but also more recently, which I think is what you're getting at. I'm seeing a lot of operators really recognizing that we're just one of the pillars of wellness. And I know there's a lot of trusts around the Manchester area working really hard and doing some great work about adding in to their messaging and their staff education about the pillars of wellness. You know, it's about sleep, it's about mindfulness. And I think it's the first time ever there was a survey recently out in the States, 76% of people put their mental health as the number one reason for exercising. Mm-hmm. So it's the first time that's gone over their physical well-being. Yeah, did you see that?
Yeah, I think it's very fascinating.
Yeah, that really stood out for me. And so there are some operators who are really changing their messaging and embracing that as an opportunity rather than a threat. And they are the ones who are doing better again. So community and understanding that you're just part of a pillar. You're one of the pillars to wellness. And the savvy operators are making themselves a bit of a hub for that wellness journey.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Glenda's been talking to a few recently, John, because obviously she works in that space quite significantly with her recalibrating. We talk well-being, and the operators that Glenda has been talking to, they're loving it because it just gives them that. One, it's first to market advantage because obviously it's quite a new thing, but also it's they see a huge value. And we've spoken to a couple, haven't we, Glenda? And they've changed their business model. They've literally said we are a wellness company. That's the first thing they said on a couple of calls we've had over the last couple of weeks. Is we're no longer a fitness business; we're a wellness business. These are the trusts.
Yeah, you're right, Ryan. I think the big challenge we've got, it's like anything, though, is that the fitness industry does have to not just reinvent the product, but reinvent how they deliver that. And I'm not being negative at all. I think it's a very big opportunity. Yeah. But I definitely think that the fitness sector, to make that work, will have no choice but to open up more collaboration. and work with partners that really understand it, because my concern is it just becomes another transaction sale rather than a relationship. And I know that you guys understand more than anybody how complicated the member relationship is to get it right. Don't get me started about how complex that becomes when it's someone's personal well-being.
Yeah.
It's so much more intimate and so much more it opens up a lot of potential for deep thinking, right, about where you're at, more than physical fitness. And we're going to have to really engage with experts to deliver that successfully.
That's right. And I think you've got to decide what you want to be and to who. And we often talk about this. I was working with some Hungarian operators last week with the guys from Life Fitness, and we were really talking a lot about, well, what is your brand promise? And is that clear to you? And is that something that your staff buy into? So what is it you do and for who? One of my favorites is the Disney one, creating magical experiences, creating magical moments, things like that. It's clear what they do and they deliver it. If you look at their website, you can see their brand promise. You can see the values they're working to. If you go and experience their products, it's delivered in the same way.
Do you know we used to have the one of the old sales directors from Disney worked for Fitness First many years ago. Suzanne Rizika, I think her name was, and she was telling us that the average American spends something like 4 times more on their annual holiday to go to Disney than anywhere else, any other holiday they have. Yet Disney's value rate in terms of their return, wanting to return and everything else, is in the high 90s.
That's right.
People are paying 4 times as much for everything. So their burgers are more expensive. Everything they do is far more expensive than anything else that they do. But when they walk out of it, no one is questioning the value that they get from Disney. So they're going into these parks, loving every single minute of their holiday. They're literally having the memorable, best ever holiday, coming back, spent an absolute fortune, far more than they wanted to. But yet no one complains about the price, because the value is there for what they feel they're getting. And I think for a company to be able to do that and charge almost pretty much whatever they want and still get high value, because it's very easy to go high and then get it slightly wrong and those scores start dropping. Disney doesn't, and everything they do is geared around the client experience. And I think any hospitality company, whoever you are, whether you're a gym, hotel, whatever you do in hospitality, you can always look to Disney and go, that's what they do, and that's why they do it well. Can't always afford to do what Disney does. I can remember when I worked for Marriott, you couldn't always follow everything they did. But the values they put into their business in terms of the customer experience, in terms of their desire to wow on every single moment. They even get this made me laugh. They actually get you to learn how to smile. So you go to Disney University or whatever it is to start, your first day, they have a mirror in front of you and they teach you how to smile as a member of staff. Now that, you think, anyone can smile. They just say, but we don't do fake smiles here. We teach you how to smile. So that smile you give to that child is memorable and magical. And it's all about, it's incredible the detail they go to. Which probably brings us on to quite a nice point, actually, in terms of the customer experience. Because obviously you're working with clubs at the minute, John, trying to drive that customer experience. And obviously, I think the industry is going through a big change. Obviously, we've got the difference between the non-staffed clubs, because obviously that's been a big debate on LinkedIn recently. The sort of non-staffed and that customer experience versus the full service clubs. And what sort of things are you find in the industry that they're sort of working, and what you doing with the clubs to help them improve?
Yeah, great question. But first off, the non-service clubs and the full service clubs and the high end, that's all going back to what we were just talking about. What are you going to be? What's your vision for your operation? And if you're going to do that, set your stall out and do it, but do it well. I look more outside of the industry to what's best practice in terms of customer experience. There was a fantastic customer experience and engagement summit in London 2 weeks ago, international speakers. And the big takeaways for me from that were companies that excel in customer experience also have a staff experience program.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So, and someone, I can't try and remember who said it. Was someone like Forrester Research. They were talking about it takes 2 weeks for your staff to start treating your customers in the way that your teams, your management treat your staff.
Is that right? Wow.
That's really interesting, and I think
That's
we need
scary to a point.
Well, yeah, I think we need to labour the point a bit. I think that's that's a major takeaway for me. Even just already, we're 19 minutes in, but what kind of staff experience are we given, and then why do we then get surprised if the person doesn't feel engaged enough to want to give their heart and soul? And I mean, just picking up on that, John, we've got a lot of questions about personal trainers, Group X getting burnt out because they do, relentlessly 40 hours where they've maybe done 38 inductions, right?
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. You cannot do 20 classes a week or 25 inductions and do every single one like it was the first one you'd done if there's not got variety in the job and your experience is not sufficient enough to keep you fresh. So how do we get that staff experience shining through into the customer experience? I think that's a great one, that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the same research, there was a couple of other stats that came out. The one we all know of, that 80% of businesses think they deliver great customer service, but only 8% of customers think they receive great customer service. But 73% of businesses that excel in customer experience have an NPS program, but they also have an employee NPS program.
Yeah, I like that.
That's how we put one in place when I was at Exercise for Less, and we took the average length of stay of staff from 4 months to 8 months by listening to what the staff were saying. And we by no means had it right, but that's a huge saving in time and recruitment costs. But also it showed us what sort of things we needed to be. It showed us what to prioritize operationally rather than us thinking we knew what to operationalize.
I think the challenge with that as well, if you've got a turnover of 4 months, you can never create a culture, because the culture becomes we're leaving in 4 months. It becomes quite a toxic culture quite quickly, doesn't it? Something like that. If people are leaving after 4 months, something's not quite right in the business. And so the new staff coming in is feeling that person is leaving, and it just keeps rotating. So if you can extend that obviously improves the well-being of the staff. It improves the customers. Your client journey improves because the staff journey is improving.
And what kind of things, John, has been in your opinion has been successful in these type of programs? What's been included that's enhanced the employee proposition to the point where they feel like they're on fire to then pay that forward?
Yeah, exactly. So it's pointless doing anything unless your senior management team is going to buy into it.
Yeah.
So unless you're committed to action, just save yourself the energy and the meeting rooms and the chatter. Okay, so just make sure the whole team's on board and moving in the same direction. Make sure you're all clear on your brand promise and your values. And if I go in your club and I ask someone on reception, what's our brand promise, please let them be able to tell me, And I'm, in the last 6 months, I've sat in boardrooms and had board members not be able to tell me what their brand promise is. So why on earth they expect their staff to get behind it and deliver? And the whole thing about the kids talk about now is being able to bring the whole self to work, show up, bring your whole self. And I think one of the big things that brought that home to me was again, it was an engagement. It was during lockdown, and it was diversity, equity, and inclusion webinar. And the guy said that when he was applying for the job on the drop downs, it didn't just say Mr., Mrs., Doctor. It had all pronouns in, and he thought, "Whoa, what?"
Yeah.
One, he thought, "What an easy thing to do."
Yeah.
And two, he thought, "I might actually belong here."
Yeah, it's sending a message, isn't it? Right from before they're even in the building.
Yeah.
That,
So
inclusive, right?
Exactly, Glenda. And so he said that there should be one more word on diversity, equity, inclusion. It should be belonging.
I love that. Yeah. And something that you bring up there, and I would love to just pick that out a little, because obviously, you guys know my life passion is resilience, but resilient people really understand their purpose and how they fit in the jigsaw, right? It's not just about lining up to the company's vision for the company and organization's destination, but how do you link your purpose to the business's purpose, that it can work and you feel like you're making a difference in what lights you up.
That's
so
right.
I just wondered, you bring that up because you're saying there that it's about your whole self.
Yeah.
And I'm not convinced, that we, rather than KYC, know your customer, I think what you're actually telling us is know your employee, right? And I don't know if we do enough of that.
Yeah, I agree. And it just was a big stat from experts in engagement and customer experience saying, look, it starts with knowing exactly what you're trying to deliver, making it clear with your staff, but also, why can't your staff create what you're delivering with you? They become a big part of it, don't they? They grow with you. So if you're not growing your staff, you're not going to grow your customer base. But it really hit home to me, if you're not listening with a constant flow of NPS from your staff, how are you going to truly engage them? And then there's some simple ways to do it. And you were talking about member onboarding earlier, Glenda. I think we've gone down a rabbit hole but it's easy to give the customer what they want these days, because all they want is what they want, when they want it, and how they want it, isn't it? It's simple, isn't it? So it's like, I was working with a chain of clubs in Moscow last summer, and they had 40 budget clubs growing fast. And they were prepared to sit down and go right back to, is our brand promise correct? Are all our staff on board? We did different training sessions to bring out what different areas of the business thought was the brand promise. And then everyone sat down and we nailed down the brand promise. And we also nailed the values. And the example everyone uses, if you want to see a business that's clear on its values, look at the Zappos website. They share all their values. Take 10 minutes of your day. It's very clear, and every employee knows what they're working towards. If they think they've got a decision in their department to make, they can think, well, if I make this decision, does this fit with the business values and my values? And everyone's clear about it. And one of the things that the Spirit Clubs in Moscow was doing, and you talked about inducting lots of people, they were filming inductions as well. So if I didn't have time to go and sit with a PT, or I didn't have the PTs to sit with the staff, I can still make sure I'm delivering a quality induction by someone just sitting down and consuming the induction of what they want to see, the parts of my gym offering they want to see when it's there, and it saves everyone a lot of time and a lot of effort. It's all there in the app. It's easily done. So that's
got me thinking though, John, right? Because I'm thinking of operators that are friends of mine right now. I used to be one, and I'm still, very fortunate to have my relationship with the guys from any time. But, what they do really well is simplify a member journey so that from a consistency point of view, you can keep it simple and everybody knows what it is, right? But how do you, from what you're saying, though, it sounds to me like we've got to get a bit more individual, like the customer wants it when they want it, how they want it. How do you do that? Because I know you've got major experience of working with big brands. How do you do that when you're at scale, though?
Yeah, great question. And again, it goes back to knowing your brand promise and the C word. And by having the right communities and making sure that's a two-way street. When we brought the app into exercise for 8-9 years ago, when it was very difficult, you couldn't just get a nice app off the shelf. One of the things the team wanted included in it was the closed social communities for each club. I wasn't convinced by that, and it was probably the most successful part of the app. Okay, and you had the conversations of people like you who do things like this. They felt we're all the same sort of people. We're all doing the same sort of things. We've got a lot in common. People would post questions, and then the members were answering, and the members were helping people create the journeys that they wanted, and how. So we had enabled them to use us how they wanted to use us. And my point here is
empowering the member, isn't it?
exactly letting them create their journeys how they want them. And if you don't let them do this, they're going to do it themselves anyway. So I'm not going to mention any brands. Actually, I'll mention one. Planet Fitness over the pond. They've got a very good community support group on Facebook. If you go onto it, they'll ask you to join. They'll let you join it, and all you will see is members sharing their success stories or sharing their fears, and other members helping and supporting them or patting them on the back.
Yes.
There was a shoe company, John, back in the day when Facebook first really started getting big for companies. There was a shoe company. I remember reading this when I was trying to launch the Marriott Facebook stuff, and it became so big. It was a kids shoe company, so little toddlers and stuff. And the community got that big, it actually became a parenting community rather than it did a shoe company. They had 500,000 people in this group.
Yeah.
And what they used to do in the end, if they were creating a new shoe, they used to just throw out the ideas onto this page, and obviously everybody would vote on it and come back. But it actually became a bit like Mumsnet or Net Mums and whatever. It became that big. It was actually all these parents talking about the different issues with their kids and how to solve this. And my kid's ill, can I do this? And that community got that big because of that. They actually not lost control, but they didn't have to run that site themselves. It was almost run by the community and their members. It was an incredible thing to read about, and that ultimately is where you're saying you're trying to create those communities where the people are getting out of it what they want out of it and putting into it what they put into it, and then it almost gets a life of itself. And that drives your own success, and all you're doing really is giving a platform, aren't you? And that's the great thing if you can get there.
Yeah, try not to shout at people. We used to talk with our social media departments, and I still try and talk social media. Don't shout at people. Join in the conversations. If someone's commented on your social feed, you've got to acknowledge it. Respond ideally with a question to keep the conversation going. Yeah, and then give that member that little dopamine hit that they want. It's like we used to call it the pub test. If you're in a pub or if someone says something to you, it's unusual you're going to ignore it. You'll at least acknowledge it, and you'll likely say something back.
Yeah.
It's not always the case, but generally we're on safe ground there, aren't we? So why would you be any different in different social settings? Just because it's online, it's still social. Okay. And I think, for me, one of the biggest opportunities we've got as an industry, the way we're leading our lives now, post-pandemic, or, living with the pandemic, however you want to look at it, is that I think activity is the new interactivity. A huge opportunity for us.
Absolutely. And just talking about that then, John, if in terms of the sort of member journeys, so when you're going and working with clubs, is there a certain thing that where you start at and go, okay, regardless of the business. So if we've got people watching this going, we don't really consider our journeys, we've not really got them planned, it just happens. How would they go about having a look at this and going, okay, we need to formalize this a little bit more so my staff know what they're doing and the members know what we're all about? Where would you say they start and have a look at this process so they can put that into their clubs?
Yeah, well, one, make sure you've got everyone's down with your brand promise and your vision and your values, and and two, make sure everyone's committed to taking action. And then I would look at a member journey as the stages of learning is the way to view it. When you're unconsciously incompetent. So that gym member is basically walking around, living their life, not even aware that one day they're going to join a gym. Yeah. Then they become consciously incompetent and decide they want to join a gym. But your brand has been creating touch points with that member before they wanted to join a gym. So if you want to do a proper member journey, you need to start mapping out your touch points, which is when your brand interacts with a potential consumer, that interaction can cause their level of sentiment towards you to go up or down. And just start mapping it along the timeline. If we sent this message, does that make the sentiment go up or down? Yeah. They might see a story about your club raising £30,000 for leukemia research. Or they might see, coming up to Christmas, aren't we? 2 years ago, Peloton saying, buy your partner a bike because they're fat. Remember the advert? I mean, it was shocking, wasn't it? So what's that say about your brand before they're even considering using you? So you can cut yourself, you can get in the game or out of the game before the consumer's even aware that there's going to be a game. Yeah.
How do you get in the game? What would be a couple of tips you would tell people? What would you say if it was just here's 2 throwaways? What would they look like?
Well, get your brand promise right.
Yeah.
Get your vision right. Get your values right, and then you'll know the touch points you're creating out there are going to be what you stand for, and also what you stand against. You know.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very clear.
I love that because you can't be everything, right? And I think that, you know, when you go to business school or whatever, people used to always think that values, vision, and all that was fluffy. It's so funny. The older I get, I realize just how much more important they really are, because you need to know what you stand for. Because if you don't, how does the employee know?
Exactly. How are they going to come with you?
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah. So then, I mean, and then you go along that member journey, the third stage of learning, you're consciously competent. That's you're in the club. Make sure the journey's a good one. And again, think about touch points you're creating and whether they.
That's fun, John. What are the big howlers you've seen? Come on, give us a couple.
Well, you know, obviously things like that Peloton advert really make me cringe when you see stuff like that. You just go, that's not going well, guys. And look, 18 months, 2 years later, it's not ended well, has it?
Although strange. I mean, yeah, Peloton's an interesting one because that's. I think they've had more troubles than just calling partners fat. I think they've had a few other challenges on theirs. But then you look at the likes of Ryanair and stuff like that. Now they're quite an interesting one because they actually don't care that people see them as this ogre in the flying world, because ultimately their brand vision is they're cheap. And they go down.
Ryan, that's exactly what John's saying, right?
Yeah.
They're saying what they are, and they're sticking to it. We might not do loads of frills, but you want a cheap flight. And that's how they sort of sell it, right?
Yeah, and they're another good example. I mean, they don't treat you as someone who's buying a flight. They treat you as someone who's buying a short weekend away with mates, or someone who's buying a trip to see a relative you've not seen for a long time. Yeah, as someone who's buying a cheap adventure somewhere different. That's how they view you.
Yeah.
Not as an airplane passenger. And going back to your question about clangers, if we're talking flight industry, when the pandemic hit, Virgin Atlantic, right on, laying off all their staff 2 days before the furlough scheme was announced. Very quickly having to find reverse gear, but the message had been sent out. We don't give up about our staff. Absolute. You know, if they were clear on their values, they would have stuck with it. I'm doing quite a lot of stuff with the Orange Theory guys in the UK at the moment, and they spoke about how when the pandemic hit, they all sat down as a group and went, well, how are we going to do this? There's 2 ways we can do it. We can all take a little bit less and protect each other through it, or if everyone wants to keep taking the same, some people are going to have to go. And they attacked it as a group.
That's a brilliant example.
Marriott did the same thing in after 9/11. They went down to 3 and 4 day working weeks, and it was literally a discussion across the board. No, they didn't enforce it. It was pretty much it's redundancies or we all take the hit. I mean, I joined them after, but yeah, that happened. Then they did a very similar thing after 2008 as well. It was sort of voluntary. Drops and I think that's important. If you've got the values within your team, obviously those values can then push out into your members, can't they? So
and it's about creating the environment to make that happen. So your culture is going to come down from the top to the bottom, and if you've got the right environment and culture, your strategy can come back up from the bottom. The people who know what's happening. So it's about having an environment where a bad idea, you know, isn't the opposite of a good idea. A good idea isn't the opposite of a bad idea. Okay, so there's lots of products that would never have been created in the world if the boardroom thought we can't, you know, we're not going to consider this idea because it's clearly stupid. Like examples like if I was working for a certain company and I went, what we need for the general public is a really cool looking vacuum cleaner. You know, we'd never have got Dyson, would we? You know.
No.
I like the interesting one. Wrigley's chewing gum's the funny one because that was a soap company.
Yeah,
And they
that
used to send out the chewing gum
There
as
you
a
go.
as
little
a sort of
bonus.
free gift with the chewing gum became more popular than the soap, so the soap disappeared and they
Yeah.
became a chewing gum company.
Yeah.
I just love that. But the great thing about it was there was no, they didn't sit there and go, no, we are a soap company. It was like, happy days, we can make money out of this, and that's what they did. And the whole business changed accordingly.
Yeah. So sort of again, it's about what do you sell, you know?
But you know what, John, I'm going back to it because it just fascinates me so much. What would you say is the really big stuff we get wrong that we could, like a quick win? What's the howlers? What do we get up to that makes you chuckle? Because you know just how bad it hits our engagement and our retention. What would you say?
We're selling we're selling a commodity rather than experience is the big one that gets me. We're literally renting out kit to people in a space generally.
I think that's a brilliant thing to say. I think we should repeat that. We're just renting kit to people in a space. Surely we've got to go way beyond that.
You often fall into that, and so again, I say it's about what do you sell, you know. And again, you look at other brands out there. If you talk to somebody at Harley Davidson and ask them what they sold, they're not going to say they sell motorcycles. They sell a lifestyle, of course, you know. If you talk to someone from Rolex, they don't sell watches, they sell prestige.
Mm-hmm.
And never ever in the world of purchasing decisions has anyone ever made a logical one, you know. So I don't know, just to all the blokes out there, how many watches have you got? Yeah, to everyone out there.
Excuse me, I'm a watch person.
Yeah,
and I'm a lady, but I love watches.
Yeah. So how many watches have you got, Glenda?
A lot.
Yeah. How many do you need to tell the time?
One.
Yeah. Where's the logic in that? So you're clearly buying something other than a watch, aren't you? You know?
I've always been a watch fan.
So again, it's like thinking about what are we selling? What are you selling to people?
I think that's an interesting point at the minute because of where our industry is going, John. Because I think there's a real coming back to that original point in terms of non-staffed versus staffed clubs, and I think there is a divide that's happening now. Whereas we're going to, I know obviously you worked for XRs for Less before with the budget models, and I think there really is a divide between those clubs. And they are growing. I mean, obviously they're growing exponentially. Those type of clubs, and they are rent a treadmill facilities. That's what they're designed for. And obviously they've got their place. But obviously on this other side, it's sort of understanding. Okay, there is still this place for a full service club that actually helps you deliver that lifestyle that you're looking for, and that's in essence what you're selling. But the industry has very much gone to this, so there isn't really a middle ground anymore. It tends to be the sort of non-serviced clubs and your service and experience clubs. And I think it's really important, like you say, understanding what you are, because there's definitely a place for both, and it's understanding where you want your club to be and not trying to be a bit of both. So go, okay, if we are delivering a service, what does that service look like? What does that journey look like? And how do we get our client to the end? If we're going to be a non-service club in essence, and we're going to be a facility, then let's sell that. Let's be really good at that, and let's deliver that for what it is. And like you say, it's understanding exactly what you are, because there'll always be a place for going in, just doing your own stuff and training. But I think one thing that I guess I saw, I don't know whether you guys are the same, but I think what the pandemic did, it made people realize actually there's value in that support element we can get from those other clubs. So going in like group fitness at the minute, group PT has jumped exponentially. That the growth in that has been massive over the last couple of years since the pandemic. And I think that's where, because people are going, I want to be part of a community. I want to be a part of that environment. I want to train with people, and I want to get the advice. So I think that's seen massive growth as well. Same as PT. PT as well is growing. So people are wanting more service now and willing to pay for it.
Yeah, and also, what is our marketplace there, Ryan? I think you for me, that's what you're hinting at there. Is our marketplace other gyms members? Is our potential market that, or is it people who've got exercise goals but aren't yet using the gym to fulfill them? And I know there's a really interesting piece of research from to the guys at Retention People and Melvin Hill's done at the moment, where they've done a lot of polling of people who don't use gyms about what they feel about gyms. And I'd recommend you go and have a look at that. It's a bit of an eye-opener.
Well, I think this is where wellness has got a huge opportunity, because I've always said this when I get asked about it. The wellness journey starts before you want to do a fitness club membership.
Correct.
So what I'm meaning is, when you said, John, about where do you fit in the continuum, and the story starts way before.
Yeah.
Actually, what about if somebody wanted to use your club to improve their sleep? And then once they're sleeping better, they automatically want to start habit stacking, don't they? It's just how it works. Once you develop a good habit and it works for you, you want to bring in another one. So you might be on the wellness journey way before you want to do physical activity.
Yeah.
So therefore, that would sit beautifully as part of the member journey. And obviously, we know that when members often stop using the gym, it's not because they don't like the gym, or that can be the case, but a lot of the time it's because they've just had a baby and they're maybe not getting as much sleep, or they've started eating unhealthily and their energy's down and they don't then want to train. So it's quite amazing how healthy habits bring more healthy habits, and then unhealthy ones bring more unhealthy ones. So wellness has got an amazing opportunity from, like in terms of what you say about where it sits.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how when people are looking to get healthy, that it isn't always exercise is the first point of call. How often do people go, I need to go on a diet, or I need to, you know what I mean? It's not always exercise is the first thing. And that's where the sort of wellness argument comes in.
Confidence first, right? So if we can
absolutely. And this is where wellness comes in, because it's not just about fitness and getting on a treadmill and getting in the gym and training. It's about the mental mindset of getting it all right. So improving your sleep, reducing your alcohol, it's living and feeling better. And obviously exercise is, we'd all like to think exercise is the 100% of wellness. You need to exercise to be fit and healthy. Well, technically, yes, but it's not everything. Now we're a little bit more savvy about it, in the fact that it is our diet, it is our mental well-being. They all fit into these. I mean, obviously we calibrate 12 different series, but there's so much to wellness, and exercise is only a part of that. And I think if as our industry we realize that and start focusing on the other things, that'll help bring more people in, and also more people from outside of our norm. I mean, we talk about it all the time with other guests, John, the 15%. Yeah, the 15% is nonsense, because it's only 15% of members of clubs, granted. But how many people walk, play sports, run, cycle, swim, whatever, outside of our facilities?
Over 50% of the population will exercise for 30 minutes 3 times a week. At any point in time, 80% of the population has got an exercise goal.
Wow.
At that point, they're motivated, which is a single point in time. It's our job to find them when they're motivated and help them become committed over a period of time.
John, just curiously, when you get members who are disgruntled, they are absolutely looking to exit, what would be some tips in terms of trying to salvage that?
So tip number 1 is communicating with them all the way through the membership journey and keeping that communication channel open. You're way more likely to catch them and be able to clear up any issues they've got before they're falling through the cracks of your club.
Yep.
Okay. So again, automate attendance-based communications. These days, there's intelligent newsletters. You could even silo your members when they're a lead, not just when they're joining, but when they're a lead, what are they interested in? And then you can nurture your leads.
Absolutely.
There's so many systems out there as well, John. I mean, obviously you use, but there's so many systems now to automate these processes.
So what though you do all of that, and the person, comes in, gets a bad experience one day, doesn't want to stay, they've had enough. They've made 3 things that's all went wrong. What's the tips?
So make it, if they really want to leave, you've got to make it a simple, easy leaving experience. I've cancelled 2 subscriptions this morning, not to gyms, and one of them was so frustrating because could I find where to cancel? You know?
Do you know something? That's me. I've got to say, and I don't want to say them by name in a negative fashion because I think what they do is amazing. But that's really funny that you say that, right? This week there was a Black Friday deal on Mind Valley. Now I've been meaning to join Mind Valley for ages. It's a membership, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kid you not. I think I've paid about 8 times now, so I'm quite nervous that the money's been taken, right?
Yeah.
Because I seemed to get through the payment process and then it all went a bit pear-shaped. But then on the app, I'm getting into the odd program, but I'm not getting in, and it's constantly a message saying subscribe. So I'm thinking, right, I've not subscribed. So I go into their WhatsApp to try and say, I want to be a member. I can't pay, or I have paid. I have no idea what's going on. And I nearly threw the phone out the window because it's a chat bot that every time I say,
oh yeah,
no, I think I'm a member, but I'm not sure if I'm one. It keeps going back. What number do you want? And then I was going round the houses. I was trying every which way possible, and I couldn't get out of that automated system. And I kid you not, it put me off them as a company.
Yeah. And it's another massive area, isn't it? Of how are these chat bots and voice recognitions catering for the entire population? How does a chat bot cater for someone with voice impairments and stuff like that? It just doesn't recognize what they're saying. So you're alienating. Got to really think through what you're offering to people, haven't you? So it is an absolute minefield. But if someone wants to cancel, please make it a good experience, and then why not stay in touch with them? If you've done this journey properly, you know what they were interested in. Keep in touch with them with tips around what their health goals were.
It's amazing, John, how many people ditch leads once they leave. I've spoken to a number of companies, even from a sales perspective, that ditch their leads way too early, and so they sort of go, "Oh, they haven't joined, so we'll get rid of them." Like going, "What? Why are you doing that?" Because get rid of them at the point that they say they want taken off your database.
Yeah.
Well,
otherwise, they stay on your database.
They might want to do Zumba and you don't offer it, but a year later you do.
Yeah.
Or their goals change. It might not be the right time in their life. It just for whatever reason you just aren't on right for them. Always keep in touch, whether it be ex-members, whether it be current members, whether it be your prospects. It seems crazy that you would delete. I mean, a lot of clubs went through this when GDPR all got pushed through in a lot more detail. They got rid of a lot of their leads, and you're just like, why?
Yeah.
I didn't grasp the concept of that. Everybody has the option to opt out. Give them the option to opt out, and they can opt out whenever they want. You know what I mean? And when they do, make sure it's actions. But until that point, keep it up to date.
Yeah, so you've just reminded me of another one of my big bugbears with the industry, and it's talking about value and metrics, right? So everyone's obsessed with how long a member stays, but not their lifetime value. Okay, so if you talk to someone at Ford, they'll tell you, if I buy a Fiesta when I'm 21 and I'm looked after correctly, my lifetime value to them is something like £360,000.
Wow!
Because I've gone and bought different Fords, and
all the servicing and everything else.
I've never met a club operator who can tell me if I join their club at 20, what's going to be the lifetime value. They'll tell me, oh, you'll stay, on average, our members stay 8 months. Well, what if my leaving experience is good? I've worked out with you through the off season. Now I'm going to play my team sport for 4 months. And I don't want you for my exercise goals, but you've taken another 4 months payments off me. Then I'm not going to go back to you in 12 months. Yeah. Whereas if you've made it good, every off season, I'm going to join with you.
Yeah.
Do you want your value to be the initial 7-8 months of membership and then kill it? Or do you want it to be 7 or 8 months every 12 months for the next 10 years?
Yeah, that's a great shout.
So what are the metrics, And someone was explaining you've got you can put metrics into, you've got night guy and morning guy. Night guy is the one who wants to stay and have a couple more beers Yeah, maybe go on to the nightclub that's still open down the road. Yeah,
That's you, Ryan.
they put value on that, you know. And so in your business, that might be the CEO who wants another sale today. Get that sale, you know. But then you've got morning guy who maybe only has a couple of pints, slides off about 10 when people aren't really noticing, gets up early in the morning and he's ready, everything's good and laid out, the gym's perfect. Yeah, they're the guy who's looking at the great experience. So which is more value to your business, and what should the metric be? So there was a guy, experience officer from Huel, speaking a couple of weeks ago, and you had to stand and listen to him, and you thought he's got to be good because he's walking around with a t-shirt on that said "Don't be a dick." At the customer engagement conference, you know, amazing people and speakers there. But he was saying that their telephone support people, if they want to say at the end of the call, "Oh, ta-ra, mate, nice one," they say it because that's them. Yeah, they don't have to say "Thank you for calling Huel. Is there anything else you need?" So that they want to be genuine and be themselves. And he says one of the metrics they measure their support team by is how many weddings they get invited to each year. And they've been invited to 3 weddings this year, and I thought that's brilliant. How good's that? Using the right metric and yet letting the right people own the metric is so important. But if your culture's not right,
really interesting as well.
You'll never get it.
The right metric, but letting them own it. You've talked a lot about that today, actually, and that's a big takeaway for me. It's about how much you're emphasizing the importance of everybody being part of the jigsaw. That you're being really open about what everything means to the employee. You know, you're not. It's very transparent, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's important so you don't get silos of departments. And also, again, relevant here, one of the terms in the industry that really gets me, kind of makes my teeth itch even, is that we're a hybrid gym. You know, we're phygital with physical and digital.
Phygital.
Yeah, physical and digital. Physical and digital. And so in the race to get online, there's a couple of things the industry ignored. It's like, one, there's a massive online fitness industry anyway, with YouTubers with millions of followers. And for us to be so arrogant that we think we could just jump in there, you know, and beat them to it was another thing. But also, if your digital product doesn't reflect, you know, your promise, your values, the way you deliver things doesn't reflect your in-club operation, it's a different product.
Absolutely.
So you will need a different team, and it will be creating different touch points, which will create different sentiments about your brand because it's different online to what it is in club. Okay, and
it's interesting because I speak to John. I speak to like other people in our industry that like some people do very well in terms of going on and doing their own videos. There's quite a few. Like you can easily go and watch Alex Hormozy do his stuff, and he's fantastic on video. But I mean, he's got a whole team behind him, but he's comfortable on it. And I was speaking to someone, funnily enough, the other day, and I said, look, if you want to push a piece of video is the way forward. Now, I enjoy doing this sort of stuff, but sitting on and I don't know how Glenda feels, but sitting in front of a camera and just filming myself, I genuinely find quite difficult, and I have done them in the past. But some people really enjoy that. But you see the ones that really enjoy it, it's actually an extension of their brand.
Yeah,
and it's quite interesting. The ones that don't quite get it right, it's different to what they do in their normal business. But the ones that get it right, like Alex Hormozy and people like that, it is just their business. You can see that's them, and they've got the same values on camera as they do in their main business. And it's quite interesting. Those who feel comfortable with it and have that, and what you're saying there is, if you take that hybrid model and suddenly put yourself online, it's got to be the same business as what you've got in your main in your brick and mortar, because otherwise there's two separate entities. You need to sell them as such.
Yes, you've got to be a mono-channel business. If the touch points from your digital aren't influencing and creating better experiences in your clubs, if you're not learning from them, and vice versa, then you've got two separate businesses.
Yeah, exactly, and treat them as such. So, not to take up any more of your time. I mean, it's been absolutely fascinating this morning, Jon, talking it through with you. Just one final question we do like to ask, unless Glenda's got another one she wanted to jump in before. But in terms of inspiration, we like to get the range of inspirational characters out there. So, in terms of what you do for a living or in life, other than your family, because we know family is massive for everybody, and it's we feel that's a bit of a cop out because it's very easy to say our family. Mine's my dad and the rest of my family. So, but also there's other people in life that sort of get you going, get your juices flowing. Who would you say that's been? Is it whether that's an author, whether it be a writer, whoever? Who do you think sort of helps you out, do what you do, and get you inspired?
Oh, two people really. Major man crush on Daley Thompson. Showing my age. And also being a tennis player and a darker shade of pale in the 80s, Yannick Noah.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
So it was a big hero of mine. And then stuff, I love basketball, the NBA, still follow his son in the NBA. In terms of authors, the one I'm really into at the moment is Rory Sutherland.
What does he do?
A book called Alchemy. He's a behavioral economist.
Yeah.
And he was heavily involved in the when the government set up the nudge unit. So he worked for government in creating the nudge unit. And his book, I mean, when you read it or do it on, if you do it on audio books, he reads it himself, and he's really entertaining.
I'll make that my next one. I love Audible.
And it's a fascinating topic as well. So,
Jon, just for the benefit of everybody out there, what's your parting advice then?
Recognize what your brand promise is.
That's came through strongly.
Okay. Work out what your values are, but make sure your virtues reflect your values. So actually what you do rather than what you say you will do is the more important thing. And I think the biggest thing is being nice to people, being kind. It's free.
That's really good.
Absolutely. We believed in that as well. Well, really appreciate your time this morning, Jon. Fascinating conversation. Really enjoyed that. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Jon, obviously all his details are at the end of the podcast. So jump on. He's big on LinkedIn, so you won't be able to miss him. So follow him on LinkedIn. And also give him a shout if you want to get in touch and see how we can improve your business. But really appreciate your time this morning, Jon, and I'm sure we will get you on again at some point in the near future. So we appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for asking me, and thanks to anyone who's listened.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Jon.